Antonio, welcome to Art and Cocktails. I am so excited to chat with you today. You've been such an incredible part of my life, your family, your gym. It's been absolutely transformative, and I can't wait to talk about your story and share it with our audience. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here. I just wanted to start by thanking you, Kat, for being a friend. The whole time I've known you, you've been there with me through some ups and downs, and you've always been stalwart, and I can't appreciate your friendship enough. So I just wanted to thank you at the beginning of this. It means a lot to me. And I think, being a small business owner, you're kind of in the fog, but like when I look back, I'm really going to appreciate what you've done for me. So thank you.
Oh my gosh. Well, thank you. Same right back at you. I feel like we all need to stick together and like bring in resources. And that's something that we'll definitely talk about. And yeah, thank you so much. Same, same, same. Well, before we begin, I would love for our listeners to learn a little bit about your story. You have a background in the Marine Corps. You also are a gym owner and a business owner, an entrepreneur. And I really consider you a creative and something that I really, really admire about you. But what I would love to do is I'd love to go back and hear your story of what inspired you to start your own gym. I know it was kind of like a scrappy beginning, like my business. We kind of use what we have. I would love to hear what inspired you to start BlkOps.
Sure. At a young age, I think my parents instilled a lot of reading in me, and that kind of opened my mind to these adventures and these just kind of the hero lifestyle always kind of appealed to me. So really enjoyed grade school, played sports in grade school. But once I got out of grade school, I kind of started struggling when it came to the transition from grade school to high school. Kind of lost some of my confidence, started becoming a follower, and that kind of put me on a path that wasn't exactly the planned path. Still did good in high school, but obviously wasn't doing what I was, living up to my potential. So when I left high school, I didn't have any money for college. It was kind of clear that that wasn't going to happen at that time, and it was actually a good thing because I wasn't mature enough for it at 18. And I was working at a restaurant, and that was my first little chance at seeing the entrepreneurial world. I worked for a manager. He wasn't the owner, but he was just a wild man, and he just made it a lot of fun running around the restaurant. And I excelled at my job. I was a busboy, and they like got rid of the busboy in the second room, and then I was like, okay, now I got to go do that, which was teaching me hard work and kind of your value, and kind of knowing your value too, because they weren't paying me extra to run two rooms. So that was my first little take with the entrepreneurial space. But obviously that wasn't what I was set out to do. So I didn't have an answer, and I answered a business reply card that came to my parents' address from the Marine Corps and didn't tell my parents. And then the recruiters came after me, and that was a process. So the January after high school, I was still 18, I joined the Marine Corps, went down to South Carolina, Parris Island. In the Marine Corps, it was a wild journey, a lot of challenges. It was kind of riddled with self-doubt. You think you join the Marine Corps, you become a Marine, and that's going to, all of a sudden you have courage, you have confidence, but that took a lot of work to develop. And especially, the first 2 years or so, I struggled a lot with that. And then a kind of a switch flipped in me, and I was like, this isn't how I want to live my life. This isn't how I want to live my career. And I started challenging myself and going after what I was scared to do, and started volunteering for everything I could and chasing leadership in any way I could. And in that process, one of my mentors at the time, he was a former drill instructor, and he mentioned to someone that he thought I should become a drill instructor, which was not something I ever saw myself doing. The Marine Corps boot camp is very intense, and these guys basically scream at you all day for 3 months straight, and they're with you 24/7. So I'm just like, that's not me. I'm quiet. I'm chill. You know what I mean? But I went out there, and at the time, my uncle, who lived across the street, he was a huge inspiration to me. He's almost like my dad's twin brother. Super hardworking Italians. And he had fallen. He's a construction worker in like his 60s or even older, and he had fallen off a scaffolding, and he was paralyzed. And he would be out front we lived in a cul-de-sac, and he would have visitors, and seeing that he lost the use of his body, but his mind was so strong, was an inspiration for me to take on this challenge. And so I decided to go out west and kind of leave my support structure. And so I went to California to become a drill instructor. And that was a whole nother podcast story, the journey of becoming a drill instructor. But in there, I really learned about getting recruits in shape and physical fitness, because you have all walks of life from across the country, and your job is to get them fit, among many other jobs. And that's something I really enjoyed doing, and I excelled at as well. So that was kind of the first feel for the fitness industry and training individuals. And actually, one of my platoons, they drew a little picture for me at the end when we were playing nice. And it was me with like some, a whistle and some other things, because that's what the side of me they saw was in the fitness space. So that was like the first sign of that. Then I got out of the Marine Corps in California and decided to stay out there a little bit. And I journeyed into some wild realms, got into the nightclub scene and DJing and house parties, and that seeing like the DJ and like the center, I don't want to say the center of attention because that's what it wasn't about. It was, I just loved music, and that music was like entrancing me. And it was like, that was the source. And so that was very fascinating to me. And so I would go to clubs and I would literally stand next to the DJ booth and just like a student almost, just to not get in their way, but just try to take whatever I could take from that experience. And I never bothered them. And you didn't get any free music or anything like that. But so I started becoming a DJ myself and did well on the little underground scene. But I had completely, things were getting murky. it was getting too wild out there. And I knew I had to come back home. At the time though, I was working for another entrepreneurial gentleman, and he had 3 stores up California coast. So one was in San Diego, one was deeper down by the border of Mexico, and then one was in Hollywood in the actual, it's a mall where the Chinese theater is, I believe. I don't know if they do the Oscars. They do one of those big shows, and right through this like opening, you can see the Hollywood sign. And so that was kind of cool to be getting in that world. And I was working for operations, and he was completely overworking me and paying me nothing. But I learned a ton. I learned what not to do and how not to manage, but I also just took all this energy of this California vibe and came back east and started working for an engineering firm. My brother gave me a job, and that just wasn't what I was looking to do. And I was about 31. It wasn't what I was called to do. So I started getting slowly into the fitness industry, and all of that story, it's a long story, but it's basically kind of the building blocks of where I wanted to start my own brand and my own fitness program.
Thank you so much for sharing that. Yeah, I want to dive into some of those parts a little bit more. Yeah, I feel like each one is a different podcast for sure, but we'll cover as much as we can in this intro episode. I feel like you'll be back again. But one thing I want to ask you is fitness is something that's really important. And I learned this later on in life. Like I wasn't super athletic growing up, but I just realized how much it helped me both as an artist and a business owner. And was fitness something that helped you on your journey to figuring out what you want to do, who you want to be, while you were transitioning from the Marine Corps to DJing and all those things? Was that something that was really important to you?
Yeah, part of my like I think chemical makeup is to constantly be going, and never really understood what that was, but fitness is the way that I can release some of that tension and kind of live to that energy level. It's not, I don't know if it's hyperness or whatever. It's just kind of my makeup. Like I love moving. I love being able to move and being active. It really helps my mind deal with stressors and anxieties. And it's been a huge release for me. And it's just a constant. I've been really busy with, raising a family and running a business. And I took not a break, but I took another adventure out to California a couple of years ago to shoot a podcast with a leader in the fitness space. And when I was out there, I worked out like 3 times a day. And I was like, okay, yeah, you're still a fitness guy. Like when I had the time and freedom to, that's my MO. It's to stay moving, to stay active. It just makes my body feel great. It makes my mind feel sharp. And then I'm able to perform at a higher level.
Totally, totally. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I, like I said, I didn't learn this early. I wish I knew this when I was growing up, but I'm so glad I found you guys and running and all that. But I want to ask you, as you came back and you had this idea to open your own gym, I'm sure it was a humble beginning. Um, Something you and I talk about before in our conversations is the way you've been able to integrate all these experiences, the Marine Corps, your love of like aesthetics and design and like almost like installations in your gym, as well as like your heart for community. What was the process like? Because building a business is tough. I know firsthand. And what were those early days like? How did you start brainstorming? How did you get clear on what you wanted to create? Do you have any tips for new entrepreneurs when they're like in the brainstorming process? They're like, okay, it feels like every door is closed. There's no job for me out there. I have to create my own job. What were some of those early steps and questions that you asked yourself?
Yeah, some of this I believe is intangibles, so I think you have to have life experience. The more jobs you do, the better I believe you're going to be off. That's not the case with everyone, but it really helps entrepreneurs because you learn all the tools you're going to need, all the skills you're going to need to wear the many hats that you're going to wear, that you're going to have to wear. But then I would start with brand, like you have to, if you don't have that talent or skill to be a visionary, I don't believe at all that you need to spend over 10 grand, 5 grand, anything like that to do branding. I think that's completely unnecessary. I don't take down from branding companies, but you can do this yourself if you take some time to reflect on who you are and why you're unique, or what is it you're even trying to bring to the space. And I think a lot of outside parties can confuse that because forget that, like you're doing this, So why are you doing this? You know, like get rid of all that outside noise, because you have to come true from who you are, because that's the only thing that's going to carry you in those hard times. So starting at branding, and if you don't have a talent to see a vision, or you're not a visionary type of person, get around someone who can, try to help them out and see if they can help you with that and be a soundboard for you. But for me, for some reason, I'm able to put colors together with the brands, to put, you know, like the background. I just like the apparel. Like for me, everything was kind of, it was pre-planned, and it was based off of the experiences. You know, I know I wanted to have a harder, grungier look. And I also was researching the industry and seeing what I liked and what I didn't like, or where were there openings for something new and unique.
I love that so much. And I really appreciate that about you because when I first walked into BlkOps, was it now 3 years ago, I was taken aback because it looks more than a gym. It looks like a creative space. It looks like almost like a lounge. And it really makes it stand out. And as an artist, I of course appreciate this. Plus, you have murals and artwork and neon lights, and you really brought your own vision to this space. Do you have any thoughts or inspiration behind this vision? Like, where did you pull this kind of aesthetic from? Was it always in the back of your head? And then I have a follow-up question for our artist community as well. But I would love to hear, like, how did you vision the cool space that you have now?
I think like you can get a little crazy with this answer, and like you can go pretty deep with it. I think a part of it is I don't like the way things are in the world. You know, I think I want to create something fun and magical, you know, like, and it wasn't there for me. And you know, I think there was some holes in me as a youngster growing up. And like, I found some places that I loved, and like Neverland, and like to create somewhere that's truly unique and it's fun. And I love nightclubs, but I don't, you know, the bad side of nightclubs, we try to pull the good side of nightclubs out. And, you know, you'll be in a cool nightclub and they'll have like this weird, like dark crystal movie on the TVs with no sound. And it's just like, that connects with me, you know, and we've done that at parties. Like we put weird movies on in the background on our big screens while we're throwing these raging parties with DJs. Yeah, I mean, I went down the wrong channels of the club music scene. And for me, I wanted to bring that back to Delaware and put it in a way that was positive, and it wasn't connected to all the darkness that came along with what I saw. And I left behind a passion, which was DJing. Like I couldn't DJ here. There's really no scene here. And that took a long time for me to overcome. Like, am I a musician? Am I an artist? Am I even good? Like my whole life, I've been moving to a beat, you know, like my foot moves to a beat. It just connects to it. And that's who I am. Like, I don't want to leave that for, you know, for life. And like, so that's kind of taking from all the experiences I've had, and then it just kind of organically happens. I believe in signs. I'm a man of faith. So like something as simple as we bought a jellyfish lava lamp. So I put the jellyfish lava lamp in the gym, and then my graffiti artist was doing murals, and I was like, why don't we graffiti jellyfish on our custom made lockers and neon bright lights? And you know, like I love the 80s, so I tried to bring some of the 80s in. Like there's like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle ooze. We have these like drains that are actually in our industrial building. So he spray painted ooze going down the drains as if the turtles were down there. So I mean, I can't really explain it in ways that is, you know, like a blueprint to a degree. I believe it is art. And you always helped me like remind me of that, because I never get that reminder. I've never gotten that since I've been back home, you know.
Thank you for being you, because I think it is hard to be different, and people have a certain expectation of what, you know, a business is, a gym is, a restaurant is. And when we break that stereotype and we, you know, break the mold and the status quo, it just throws people off. But that's not a bad thing, because the people who get it and connect with it are going to feel very welcome and very seen. If the people who don't get it, they can, you know, they can move on to a place that they understand or that, you know, makes sense to them. But there is no blueprint. I think that's the whole point, is that you were able to pull from all your life experiences, your unique aesthetic, and the things that you enjoy. And I love this reframe too of like, even when we have dark seasons in our life or we experience something that's not necessarily positive, we can still reframe it. And there's always something that we can take and integrate. I did the same thing with like my retail jobs, absolute nightmare. But in my business now, you know, I learned sales, I learned how to talk to clients. So there's always something positive in those moments. But one thing I do want to ask you for our artist community, because I feel like artists sometimes get stuck in their head, like, oh, I must work with a gallery, or it's like this very traditional cut and dry path, which just doesn't even exist. It's not even real. It's all an illusion. But one thing I love is this idea that art can live in spaces other than someone's house or a gallery, right? So like you pulled artists from the local community and you invited them into your space. Can you tell me, how did you find them? Because for artists listening, maybe they're a graffiti artist or they have something they can offer a business. How did you find them and what were you looking for and what made you want to work with them?
Yeah, there were like two big things I wanted to share before that, but I'm going to hold on to them, and I think I'll be able to come back to them.
Yeah. I'll ask you again. Go ahead and
Yeah,
share
yeah. So
before you
one was
lose.
about pressure, and the other one was, and I totally forget right now. But anyway, I'll connect the dots. Oh, it was about art, in artists, in specifically. But that just took time. Like I just had that thought today. Like we're doing a bunch of stuff with the media team. We're really pushing Instagram, and from the outside looking in, it's like, oh, this is easy. What's your graphic designer's name? Cool, I got it. What's your media team's name? Cool, I got it. You tag it off. Like I'm starting to see people have used what we've tagged, and that's awesome, right? But it wasn't that way with me when I started. It took years to find a photographer. My website was hacked and they were selling sex drugs on it. And I had to design it myself. There was I didn't have anything, you know what I mean? And it was just not giving up and not quitting. So as far as attracting local artists, it just took time and it took perseverance and trial and error. My first branding company I worked with, I gave them $750 that I did not have. It was money. I had no money, and they just took the whole theme of what I talked to them about and went completely on their own and then tried to act like I was going to pay for something that had nothing to do with the basics of what I asked for. And that was my first little fight with a creative. And we could go into a whole thing with creatives, but and then so it took time until I found I was at a barber. You just got to keep your ears open and you got to make moves and you got to capitalize on opportunities and you got to come humble and you got to come nice, and you're not entitled to anything. So I think it's important that you just keep your ears open and you don't let bad experiences stop you. Like if you work with someone and they rip you off, that's part of the game. If you don't get what you paid for, that's part of the game. It's not fair, but it is what it is. And no one's going to help you except for people like us who are telling you that's part of it. Keep going. It will work out if you don't stop. Like you will find if you're very strong at what you want and you go after it, you'll get it eventually, and it's not going to happen all in one day. So for me, it was just perseverance, trying it. One graffiti artist, what didn't work. And then one of my workers was like, check this dude out. I hit him up and now I'm dealing with what are the things, he graffitis in sewers at 4 a.m. So this is my business associate. Like he's wild. You know what I mean? He works on his own schedule. He's hard to contact, but the dude was a workaholic. And I took risks. So like my second location was an old auto body shop and we graffitied the whole garage door with this huge 1980s retro looking skull with chevrons. And it became this huge thing in the neighborhood. And like a new business owner came next to me and we literally almost got into a physical altercation because of it. And I had to tell him to get out of my business and remind him who I was. Like, and he's in his like 50s. I'm like, what are you doing? But like, that didn't come easy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not that kind of guy. But I don't know. That's such a long answer. Like, how do you draw those artists? You got to work for it because artists are a wild bunch.
That is true. But that's why I have this podcast too, to like remind people that there are people who want to work with them. You just have to be responsive and responsible and professional and actually show up. But most of our listeners are, and I think we actually recorded another episode. Side note, my friend moved out to LA and her and her husband are both artists and they started their own mural business where they actually approached a CrossFit gym and said, can we do one for free just so we can take a picture to launch our mural business? And I think something like that to grow the community together can be really, really powerful as well. But that's actually something else I wanted to ask, unless you had another thought. I know you had a few things you wanted to share. Was
Yeah,
that it?
that's
Or
kind of with the whole what an artist is. From my experience, it was just kind of saying like, what I took from California. I wasn't super celebrated out there as a DJ because it was I imagine it's very similar to the artist industry. It's like, oh, what are we supposed to like? Okay, that's what we all like, right? And
Mhm.
something that was unique was I was new to house music, so I just played everything that I found, and a lot of it was older music, but I was mixing with newer, and people liked that because it was different. It wasn't following a script, but for me, it was all new, so it worked out for me. But like that pressure of like, and I call it like posers, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't let that defeat you. Like, yeah, you kind of got pushed into a corner maybe in somewhere, but like you can bring that to a new environment and you can excel in it and showcase this to a new community that'll appreciate it.
100%. I feel the same way about art too. Sometimes you're just not sharing your stuff with the right people and they simply don't get it. And you can't like keep beating your head against the wall. It's just you got to move on and find your people. Something I wanted to ask you is about your leadership and community. I find that our gym community at BlkOps is very inspiring and supportive. And there's like a friendly competition thing, but it's very like I always feel better when I leave the place. Were there any sort of personal like code of conduct or um, a manifesto, if you will, that you wanted in your space that you appreciate as both a leader and as part of that community yourself? Because I think, this is a very, I mean, in the art world is like this too, but in fitness, it's very competitive and it can be really cutthroat and like not very nice sometimes, but you created something completely different. Can you share your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so like just how I was raised, and I try to have been kind to everyone I've ever met in this world, and I think I can hang. That's the one thing at the end I can hopefully, you know, hang my hat on. Is just treating others kindly, and that's really the source of it. So if you do that, then you're going to protect the people that you've now taken into your flock from people that aren't kind, and you're going to create a culture that is compassionate. That's respectful and it's authentic. And so you can sense the opposite of that, energy. And so we have, it's really throwing yourself out there. You know what I mean? Like I remember we've been through so much, including the shutdown, and like I try to lead from the heart. And I remember one of our members, she was a young mom, and she reached out to me and she said, no matter what happens, don't ever stop doing this. Don't ever stop being authentic and pushing yourself out there. Now I've learned to be a little more guarded with what I say because I've been hurt so many times. But I think that's important, especially in the beginning. It's like leading with your heart and treating others with respect. And when you get screwed, I mean, that's their legacy. It's not yours. And so that eventually will pay off. And it takes a lot to break people's guard down these days because of how bad it is. Just go drive down the road and you see human nature. It's a shame, but those of us out there that spread good just have to keep spreading good. And I believe it'll win in the end.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Do you have any networking tips for new entrepreneurs or creatives? Because you have attracted such incredible, high achieving people, but they're not from any specific like industry or job or place. They're all just very hardworking, interesting people from like real estate. And, we have artists and bankers and all kinds of people. Was there a strategy to this, or is this just something naturally that that you're good at? Or if you have any tips for how did you get started with that? Because it's truly amazing.
It is tricky. So, I mean, it helped that I got into this business in my 30s, so I was a little older. I'd been through a lot, and I've been through a lot of loss, personal loss. And I think people can just feel that. They can feel that energy when no one really talks to anyone anymore. No one actually treats them for who they are. If you email me, I'm going to email you back. If I tell you I'm going to do something, I'm going to get it done, or I'm going to apologize the next day because I did miss it. That is pretty much, it's just that attention to detail and that respect for others. People respect that. High achievers respect that, and performers. We have so many different walks of life. And I don't know what he does for a living, but he works in some type of membership thing. But when someone's like squared away, I'm a little bit dark, edgy. He's like, I got a guy, I know he's squared away, and he's like, your business, how did you get it so dialed in system wise? And I was like, it took a long time, but that's just always how we carry ourselves. We don't do anything automated. It's just following up on your word, and I think that really will attract high achievers and performers and people who can afford your service. It's important to attract that. If you're not answering emails, if you're entitled, if you're arrogant, I want nothing to do with you. I don't judge you, but like that's not going to build a community like that. So that's all I would say. It doesn't mean I'm any better than anyone else. It's just that's what I did. And I think that's free. Like everyone can answer emails, everyone can follow up on their word, everyone can apologize when they miss something, and everyone can give someone what they're paying you. You got to give them their worth.
Yeah, it's the simple things really do make a huge difference for sure. Thank you so much for sharing that. I have a question that's kind of on the other side of it. So, when you were starting out, I know this was the case for me, is that you might not have any resources. You might have like a laptop or not. You don't have any funding because, for us, like people who bootstrap this whole thing, it's you just kind of figure it out. Was there imposter syndrome? How did you get over like this feeling like, oh my gosh, who am I to start this gym? Is anyone going to take me seriously? Because when I started my magazine, like I literally didn't even put my name on the about page for like 2 years because I was like, this is like a thing. I hope it works one day, but I couldn't own it. But I think looking back, I wish I did. And I wish I was just embracing the scrappiness and the, building from the ground up. But I would love to hear your thoughts on this and any encouragement for new business owners.
So interesting. It's a hard one to answer for me. I guess I'll start with how did I do it from the beginning, and was there imposter syndrome? There wasn't. Um, there just wasn't. I don't know why. I don't know why there wasn't. I think I believed in the brand so much, and I really loved coaching. And I was younger. Things went off my back a lot easier than they do now. And social media wasn't as, Facebook was more prevalent, but like I was starting on Instagram and I get like one like, and I didn't care. You know what I mean? I'm like, next day I'm going to show this, and I didn't care less about any of that. So there's a lot more pressure these days, with that. And I think you need to really look at that. Like you need to have a hard conversation with yourself about social media. Like, are you going to allow this powerful tool to really take your confidence away, if you're starting up, you're not going to have that following. You're going to post something from the heart, and maybe it's not going to get a huge response. And, that's tough to swallow, depending on where you're at in life. And I know going to social media seems weird for some, but I believe it's that powerful. And especially if you're going to, those platforms were built for artists. It's so visual. It literally was, I think, created for photography. So no, I didn't have imposter syndrome, and I believed in my brand and I believed in my coaching. This is a good time to talk about the craft. I wanted you to watch this episode on the bistro, and I shared this on a recent podcast. And I was like, I want to share this on this podcast. I wanted to share this with Kat. But we're craftsmen. We have to hone in on our craft, and our customers are the most valuable thing in our business, and we need to focus on them. We are not the celebrity. You're giving something from your heart, and that's passionate, and you should just be so proud of that. And you have to go back to your craft, and you have to love your customers. And the pressure of running a business is going to pull on that. And when you find yourself wayward from that, come back to your center, and don't allow someone to take your confidence away, because that is just a dark person, and like the older you get or the more experience you get, it's very difficult, but you got to stay strong and you got to do your thing if you set out to do it.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I totally agree. And I think that I started my business without social media too in the beginning. And I definitely feel that it's changed because there's perceptions of how people see you. Like, are you at this and this event? Or, how nice is your house? And all those things that we really didn't have to worry about before. But at the end of the day, it's like you said, we're not the hero. The customer is the hero, and we're the mentor, the guide. And that takes so much pressure off. And there's that element of humility and service, but also like we can be really good at what we do. It's just we can't get in our head about it. So thank you so much for sharing that. I would love to hear your vision for the future if you're open to sharing. Like, where do you see BlkOps going and your own creative vision for anything else you want to create? I'm so excited and just so happy to be a part of it all.
Yeah, so we're going into our 10th year, and you know some of the backstory. Like, there's been a lot of ups and downs, and there was a big portion in the past couple of years that took me off my stride and my confidence, which is why I shared that stuff today, because that is a dark place to be. So my vision for the future, and especially this year, is just really developing our product on the floor and really getting in touch with our customers, which is our family, our members, on the floor, and talking to them and getting the energy up and getting the vibe up and creating this warm, special place and putting that out against the world, like, all right, you want to throw stones at these walls, then this is what's inside it. And many things can happen in the future. So my future vision is really just to strive for excellence, but it's really right now. I really think this is a new season, and I've been putting a lot of work in development, and I have the right players in place, and they're so humble and bought in. And that's what I've been, we've been trying to get that for so long, and it takes time in this industry, and people have different stuff going on in their lives. So it's totally understandable. But my vision for the future, right now, to be honest with you, it's kind of in limbo with our current location. So I can't give you that. I'm not looking to grow into new locations. That might be something way down the road. But for right now, I really want to just hone in on the product, our development, and then the systems we have in play that can bring on new coaches to our staff that can follow this system and give back to our customers. And like you said, like, just reconnect.
Yeah, no, and you know what's so cool about this community and what you've built is that it doesn't really matter where where the location is, because it's all
Yeah,
about the people and the good energy and the excellence that you bring. So that it really, like, that the location is whatever, it'll get sorted for sure. I would also love to just hear any final thoughts you have for a new entrepreneur who might be feeling like they're a little different, maybe they have a different vision or they just don't fit in their industry, any words of wisdom to just really own it and get after it?
Yes. So if you're stepping into this to do your thing, then you need to do your thing. You need to win or fail on it. There's going to be time for like evolution down the road. That's not what I'm saying. Don't stay stagnant. But that's the only advice I give you. Like, there's a million outside things, but like if you're coming into this space, the entrepreneurial space, the creative space, the artist space, you bringing everything's crazy until it's cool. So just do your thing and always push, right? Always try to develop and improve it. But it's your special, unique talent that you're bringing to the table. And like we said, offer it up to God. Like it's bigger than you might be ahead of your time. Study history. So I'm a
Mm.
huge J.R.R. Tolkien fan, and I'm going crazy into all his different books. And his books didn't even get published till after he died. At
Oh
least
my
the
God.
Lord of the Rings. And he wanted to publish this other one. And now for generations to come, all his generations are going to live off what he did and the hard work he put in. So maybe it's not going to happen for you in the way you want it to, but that doesn't mean it's not going to change the world down the road. So you've got to do your thing. If you believe in yourself and you want to bring it to the table, I'd say go do it and do it your way and fail on that. That's so much better
Mm.
than failing with someone else. That's the whole point of doing this, is that you don't want to fail someone else's way.
Exactly. I love that so much. That's such a great reminder. And it reminded me of a quote by Jamie Kern Lima. She said, "You're not crazy, you're the first." So that's
And it
pretty
might
much
take
it.
longer in
And
your life to be appreciated, which is
yeah,
weird.
and I love this idea that you shared too just now, that it's not just about like we have a very limited view of our life and the world, right? But who knows how much impact it's going to create years, decades, or centuries from now. We don't know that, and for for our ego to stay humble, we probably shouldn't know that, right? But we have to trust that we're making a difference and we're playing our part. And thank you for doing your part. It's super inspiring. All right. So, where can our listeners find you? I know some people obviously can't visit, but if they are in Delaware, they can drop in the gym, right, and take a class. Where else can they find you and keep up with everything that you're doing?
From the gym space, like I have a personal page, but that's kind of like something I did much later. So mainly is the creative space is our gym page, and that's on Instagram at blackopsfitness.com, or excuse me, BlkOps Fitness, which is BlkOps Fitness, so it's abbreviated. And that's kind of another tip, like do something unique to Google and something you can copyright when you're, or trademark, excuse me, trademark.
Yes, yes.
So do your research. But that's the main place where you can kind of see what we're creating. Our website is cool, but like that's only if you want to join the gym, and that's blackopsfitness.com. But Instagram is where we have our little creative fun, and then Facebook we stay far away from.
I feel that.
We've never gotten a good customer from Facebook. It's not my fault.
uh, thank, yeah, thank you so much, Antonio. I'm sure we'll have a part two. We'll have to go down one of the other pathways. This was the big overview, and I feel like you and I could keep going down all the different facets of entrepreneurship and creativity. Thank you so much for sharing your story and being on the show. I'm so excited to see what's next, and so grateful for you.
Thank you. Could I add one more thing to your listeners?
Yes.
So I might have come off like a little hard edge today, but I really am passionate about people in this space. I'm really passionate about art, even though I'm not technically in the artist space. And I love it. I think it's beautiful and inspirational, and it inspires me to do what I do in the entrepreneurial space. So as a motivator to any of your listeners, like, I kind of come from the hard knocks of business, and sometimes that comes out of me in a certain way, but I'm very humble, and I'm very inspired by artists in the space and by other business owners and people who are courageous enough to step into the space. And I would love to help in any way I can, as I develop an experience and share what I did wrong. So hopefully there was some value for your listeners today, and that's always kind of my intent.
Yeah, it was definitely super valuable. And you do a lot of things right. I mean, and we all make, mistakes, I guess, in life. I don't even think they're mistakes. I think they're just like direction. They point us in the correct direction. But thank you so much for that encouragement. And I think the artists really need to hear that, and the way that you bring people together and bring like two kind of juxtaposing things like fitness and art. I never thought could coexist so nicely, but it works. So thank you
Because we're
so
not
much,
pretentious.
Antonio.
Yeah, we're not pretentious about it. Just let it happen.
Yes. Thank you, Antonio. We'll talk to you soon.
All right, thank you.